I'm Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. I said that I was going to give you a couple other things in Media Watch, so I might as well. I was thinking about going and talking a little bit, talk about expanding the college football playoff is out there. There's the Colton Sissons of the Predators has signed a new contract, and for 7 years, $26 million, and, you know, our friend Alex Doherty over there at A to Z Sports Nashville has a very unique take on this that I want to discuss. And it has to do with the expansion draft that will be coming up in about a year or so with Seattle. So, you know, with that, we want to talk about that. But I guess there's also a story, a couple of old football stories out there. One dealing with former SEC star, turned NFL, I think, notable player, but he's having trouble. Isn't everyone? Adrian Peterson made $100 million. He's broke. He's like $4 million in debt. You know, thing is, I don't know. It just isn't the pension paying for that? You know, people are wondering about that. I've got the odds, including ETSU's, by the way, of winning the national championship in basketball next season. Yes, they're all out there. I actually have ETSU's odds on winning the national championship in basketball. So there you go. Okay, but let's look at this. Let's talk a little bit about, because I mentioned we're going to do Media Watch. I did not recognize that Media Watch, because I got a little bit off a tangent, would go into the third segment of the show, admittedly. But a couple of things. One that I wanted to mention was that Mark Sanchez, who recently retired NFL quarterback, he's going to be a studio host for ABC's coverage of college football. I found that to be very interesting. Former Southern California quarterback. So, you know, the ABC is not necessarily, they're more, you know, CBS is CBS-centric, and, you know, ABC is more Pac-12 and Big Ten-centric. So it makes them, everybody I know is liking this. Everybody I'm reading online, they like that Mark Sanchez, I talk about him as outspoken, but also likable. And that's one of the reasons, I've actually heard that, you know, and I start thinking a little bit about, you know, just Mark Sanchez and his relationship with some of the media. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers a while back, this was like the last time you could be politically incorrect in sports, I think. But there was I'm trying to remember here, was it Inez Saints? Trying to remember here. Yeah, Inez Saints, and she was about 10 years ago. She is a Mexican journalist, and she does, you know, Spanish television and all this. Attractive woman, and she was once doing some stories with the New York Jets about 10 years ago, and evidently the Jets, being in a locker room, some of their players expressed in sort of that construction worker type of way that they thought that Inez Saints was pretty. Well, at the time, she was also marketing herself as such as well, you know, and all this. The interesting thing is Saints, and maybe it's because of the way that she marketed herself, did not take offense at this, as I recall. It was said, oh, no, it's okay. It wasn't that big of a deal. Certainly Brent Musburger got more heat for mentioning that Catherine Webb was pretty than the Jets seemed to for, like I said, construction worker praise of Inez Saints. But I am reminded of that, you know, because that was, because Sanchez, he was able, I remember that Saints actually spoke out and talked about Sanchez as being a pretty decent guy to talk to. So ABC may have hired themselves a pretty good studio host. We'll have to wait and see. But the initial reaction of Sanchez retiring from the NFL to join the analyst desk of ABC for college football has been, okay, yeah, we see that. It's the Saint seal of approval. I mean, how can you do better than that, right? Okay. A lot of people were talking about, including our friend Brian Curtis of The Ringer, who's been on this show a few times, about SportsCenter on ESPN. That was supposed to be yesterday's business. Okay? You were not going to watch SportsCenter if you are a toast to the world as it is, and not as it was. Okay. However, if you'll excuse the headline that builds off of Mark Twain, reports of SportsCenter's death have been greatly exaggerated. At least that's what Sports Business Journal's John Orand has to say, and I found this to be very, very, very interesting. Ratings turnaround for ESPN's SportsCenter franchise has been one of the more surprising stories of the year, because there was all this feeling that, and I've talked about this, SportsCenter was a place that I wanted to watch, the highlights of. Okay, let me get that rundown. Let me see who's winning in Major League Baseball. And ESPN, during their political phase, became so political that I even thought that SportsCenter became unwatchable. Unless it was a game where they kind of stuck to sports then, And the thing about SportsCenter that does bother me is that ESPN, which does a great job of covering ESPN, more so than covering sports as a matter of fact, ESPN likes to lead on SportsCenter with sports that they have contracts for. It's been known that ESPN really only reports on arena football if they've got a contract to broadcast arena football. Just to give you an example. When ESPN lost the coverage of the NHL, and that went to NBC, ESPN reduced their coverage of the NHL. Flip side, basketball. I've talked to you until I'm blue in the face. NBA, $2.7 billion contract for ESPN and ABC. Lasts till 2025. So sometimes you turn on SportsCenter, 11 o'clock, let's say, and the lead story is not that the baseball team just went into first place. It's not that somebody hit 3 home runs in a game or went 5 for 5. No, it's a summer league. Because they got the basketball contract and they paid more for it than the baseball contract. That's still there at ESPN, but here's what they're not doing. SC6. Here's what they're not doing. So much, like I said, trying to keep the politics out of ESPN. And so, which good luck in doing that, which we saw Dan Le Batard couldn't do the other day. And so, the SportsCenter ratings have gone up. Now, the idea at ESPN is that SportsCenter is always going to be a work in progress, that it will consistently be, in their words, evolving. So the evolution to SC6, well, that was devolving, but the evolution to something else, well, let's see what it might be. But right now, ESPN in 2018, viewers for the 7 a.m. SportsCenter, and not so much the wake-up show Get Up, which was, I watched it, I think, once or so. I didn't think it was all that bad, but it was, opinion-based and all that. The ratings are up 2% from last year. Now, that means that 6,000 more sets are tuned in across the country. So, well, and still only 327,000 sets. But still, the noon SportsCenter posted a 10% viewer increase compared to a year ago. And April of last year, the 6 p.m. SportsCenter posted a viewership increase in 13 of 15 months. So maybe ESPN was just being a little too ESPN. Now, you probably heard about Dan Le Batard. Dan Le Batard, I don't really think he does a very good show, to tell you the truth. But he went off on Donald Trump last week and all. And this was after a mantra from ESPN, don't talk about politics. Remember, Le Batard once had Rachel Dolezal on his show, and it wasn't to talk football, it was to promote his own book. Her own book, excuse me. That was his show. ESPN wanted to stay away from politics. Le Batard had it out last week on Donald Trump. There was a conversation. Le Batard missed Monday's show. Was it a suspension? He's saying, I just need to clear my head, and I believe that. Here's the thing, though, about ESPN. I don't think that anyone is truly going to believe that ESPN isn't liberal until they, hire some people from Breitbart Sports to, balance it out.
Savings at